So I have another speech, another talk here, but of course in this one I will go deeper in the time I've got. Before starting with this nice statement by Cesar Calvo, which you probably know about, I would of course like to express my gratitude to all the organization, because ayahuasca is now spreading, it is expanding. People and more people are taking ayahuasca now, and it is going to be really interesting to shed light on the processes, because not everything within ayahuasca is a bed of roses, so to speak. Not everything is being used in the right way within the context of ayahuasca. So there's a fundamental phrase here, which is you have to get rid of your backpack, of your luggage. I've been working for 4 decades in the world of indigenous medicine, but also in the Zen Buddhism and clinical psychology. So 3 significant drives with which I want to prevent suffering. So the responsibility of being around for 4 decades, of course, pushed me to share all the truth I've been able to gather. And I would like to tell you what did I get both personally and professionally from this. The presentation is all in Spanish and English. So what can you say about ayahuasca? Well, there is a fundamental point here, which is that ayahuasca, same as Zen Buddhism, same as clinical psychology, is to confront suffering. The curanderos I've met during all these years were not looking for states of consciousness as we do. Their goal was just to heal the people that came to them. It is about facing the shadows and facing ignorance and inconscience. But there's 2 fundamental things that are going on today. First, accidents. After seeing for many years, and especially in the last 15 years, the accidents that happened in the world of the Amazon, the surprising thing about it is that the origin of these accidents is hopelessness and despair. There's so many people who won't believe in religion or politics or anything, and they're looking for a deep explanation to life, for the deep meaning of life, and they are finding it in these indigenous wisdoms that still preserve the world of the inconceivable and the unsondable. Of course, the world is about much more than taking ayahuasca, and indigenous people present here know that very well. When I started, the first time I started with the world of the Mazatecos in Mexico. That was in the 80s. I met this impressive master, and he opened the doors to a new world for me. Surprisingly enough, this master, some time ago, because basically I went there to a ceremony with the whole family, and then I ran away to Oaxaca. But it was such a great challenge for me that I was working with him for 27 years until he died. And then I went with the Cocamas, Chopamas, and many other indigenous peoples, and I started to understand and to grasp somehow the knowledge that this world is a world that can open up the doors of life to us, and can give us answers we can't get anymore in this materialistic world we live in. So I realized it was about much more than taking ayahuasca. The indigenous peoples I worked with told me, because I went there like taking notes like a psychologist, same thing that happened to Michael Harner. If you want to know what the deal is about, you need to really dive into it, into our experiences, and that's what I did in all of the Amazon instances I visited, not without problems. Then I started with diets. I penetrated the jungle for days, and it was 8 a.m. and it was like 7 in the evening for me. That was never ending. And then for years I understood something, that first of all, you have to cleanse yourself. You have to get rid of your luggage. You have to sort out the legacy you've got inside by repeating the names of your parents and your surnames. When you really cleanse yourself of that and get rid of that luggage, then you can understand the mystery. And that's when this master plants, because in the Amazon, they not only they take ayahuasca, they use many other plants for their diet. And how do they know that plant is going to fix that disease or that sickness? Because they say, the little plant tells me. What's that, the little plant tells me? It is that they get to this extra human world we can't grasp, we can't understand. But if we want, we can be taught by them in the correct way, in the appropriate way. So over all these years, many people that have gone on trips and had problems ask me, where can we get to with all these experiences with these plants? Of course, I'm no one to tell anyone what they should do or not, but I answer them with metaphors, because that's the way I can find to answer them. So one of them is that you will die with your own quest, which means that you can't go to the world of ayahuasca with this experientialist drive, trying to find the things. No, the first thing you need to do is cleanse yourself from in the inside. Then another metaphor is, don't put your head under the guillotine to check the blade is smooth. No, you need to penetrate in a different way into this knowledge. And one of the learnings I got from these curanderos, these shamans, he said monsters only eat where there's food. If you go there with a backpack, with a luggage full with unresolved problems, ayahuasca is going to dive into that, it's going to penetrate there. But also, according to them, there's a number of spirits that also eat where there's food. That is to say, if you have unresolved business, then you're going to have trouble with that. And then also there's different types of human beings. When I was telling to this curandero, to this shaman, there's a lot of sorrow in the world. He said there's two types of human beings. Some are seeds and they grow, and the other ones are fertilizer, are manure. You can take it as you want, but it is a deep statement that somehow left me restless. So we need to get rid of our luggage, and thanks to them I was able to research and investigate some things. First, why did I go to the Amazon and to the indigenous people? Because in the 70s in Barcelona there was a sea of LSD and we didn't know what was going on. When I asked who knows about this, and they told me the Indians, then in 1980 I collected the money to fly over to South America and learn from them about this. So I also started in the world of Zen, and from 1975 I was part of the Zen groups in Spain to this day. So these three lives, clinical psychology, indigenous traditional medicine, and the Zen world, are part of my life, both personally and professionally. So how can we get to know this? Well, first you need to cleanse your family wound. You have to get rid of the wounds and the injuries you got from your parents and your grandparents to really be able to make a change. So you can't experience ayahuasca anyway, but after some disasters I've witnessed of people that had gone into this world of the subtle and the immaterial without being prepared, my learning is that you have to get rid of your luggage and you have to sort out the legacy you got from your ancestors, and then you'll be able to really experience that change. So for those of you working on research, you need to go there in the flesh and in the first person, and then make research from the outside, from the third person. These indigenous worlds cannot be understood if you have not experienced them. So that's fundamental. So you need a vision of all the traditional wisdom of the Buddhist world and so on and so forth. When you empty yourself of these inheritance of this legacy, then your being is open and you can connect to it. And that's the biggest thing we've got inside of us. So we can access this family memory and even the DNA, because we've got Jeremy here today. Yes, we can access that memory, but as I said, and I'm some kind of a bore with that, we need to get rid of the luggage. But how do you get rid of that luggage? Well, I've seen there's two fundamental things around that. You know, every human being is born with a mold, and through the learnings of the indigenous worlds and the Zen, I understood this mold is made up of fractals through mental and energetic models that push you to act in a specific way, which is unconscious. It's weird actually for those of you here today that sometimes we've been pushed to do something, and it is by a fractal, by a pattern, and it is difficult to explain, but these fractals are some kind of roots, and this is why we repeat this kind of patterns, and they are some kind of armors that push us to act in a specific way. We don't want to, but we can't stop it unless we do a specific work on it. This includes traumas and the injuries we've sustained in our solitude, which causes immense sorrow and suffering. This is going to be quick. I don't have a pointer, but you can see that in the center of this circle, there's what we call the invalidation. I can't do this, I can't do anything. Well, that's a fractal, that's a pattern that keeps the person captive. Then the person goes to not with the dignity of being. Can you imagine someone in an ayahuasca trip trapped in this kind of pattern? Well, I've known them, and it's terrible. We've got someone here who went through these processes, and we have the root here in blue, which is part of this journey, which could not be solved, which could not be sorted out unless we work on the other issues. So I don't have much time, I'm not going to dwell on this, but there is this purge phase and then the elimination phase. So first, again, we need to purify ourselves, we have to cleanse ourselves to be able to move into this elimination phase, which is not about levitation, but about understanding the actual laws that rule this world. So again, the purgative phase and the eliminative phase, and moving on to the next slide, how such an experience is manifested of this non-ordinary states of consciousness inside us. Well, this leads to this kind of principle or law: sensitivity, unstability, and bifurcation or forking. We want to open the door of life to mystery. We want to be better, we want to be happy. But when sensitivity comes in, it doesn't stay there. It increases based on dissipative processes and the theories of chaos. And then you can move on to a process of instability, and then you can get to this forking, to this place where you can actually open the door. So we've got an example here of sensitivity of a process. If we shut down this process, then we're going nowhere. But if we let it go to the next process, which is that of instability, and instability is actually written in nature. River cane can grow because there is a knot, and this knot will allow it to create an experience from a fractal, from a different cane. And sometimes around us, around this central image in white, there is the image of a bug in black. That's the luggage, that's the negative legacy the person is trying to get rid of. So then we get to this bifurcation, to this forking, where the person will be actually able to open the door and to be confronted to the most important thing in their lives, because there's a rupture vis-a-vis the past. But again, moving on, an image is worth 1,000 words. After this process of bifurcation, of this branching, this splitting, this memory shrinks, and actually here the memory stays in the bottom and the person is reborn. That is an actual renaissance process, a rebirthing process. This is a shamanic one. This one has to do with self-organization, and that was another shamanic one. And where are we going to? Why there are so many people who want to get into this world? Well, because we go into this super consciousness. We're coming from this ancient consciousness, and we are trying to go beyond the rational world and going into this collaborative world, because this is why we're trying to recover all of this knowledge from the indigenous world. And of course, consciousness is the continent, and the only thing we can do here is being possessed somehow, being penetrated by this consciousness. And that would be, for me, the best definition of synchronicity, being able to live the whole in the part. How? Well, we're going to go beyond what happens inside and outside, and this actually represents the individual. And if you look at it, there's these dotted lines. When we get into these kind of experiences, the dotted lines you see here on the top start open up to the whole, and the whole gets into the consciousness. And that's what's going on with ayahuasca experiences. Well, yes, but also it happens in a spontaneous way with teenagers and young people. It is as if consciousness wanted us to get deeper in these times in which societies are collapsing and then crumbling down in an alarming manner. So this is a totally indigenous knowledge. What do the indigenous say? And also St. John of the Cross said that, well, at some point you have to go to the underworld to get to really know the overworld. So you can't go to the underworld with your luggage. You have to be cleansed again, as St. John of the Cross said. You have to get rid of all the legacy that somehow traps you in life. So what does curandero master do? And the cylinder to the right here is the individual, but the cylinder to the left is that of mankind. So if you want to convert, if you want to become a high-grade, high-level curandero, you have to go through the collective underworld to reach the collective superworld or overworld, which would be the maximum knowledge an indigenous curandero master can reach. So there's the clinical experience, the good science, and the spiritual tradition, and there is even some research we've been doing in the Amazon. I created the VCC, which is for the assessment of states of consciousness, and now it has 97 alpha of combat, and we did it in order to find the grounds for this impressive indigenous knowledge. And this is my last slide, but the thing is, there's some important conclusions. How did I get to this? Well, at some point I went to the Amazon, and an Ashanika master called me, and when I came to him, just 2 meters away from him, the first thing I saw is he was not alone. There was this different reality. I'm talking about a reality which was not human anymore. I realized, and of all the shamans I've known, I have met over 40 years, 3 of them have been high-level curanderos, and he was with his masters then, and he was healing people through his masters, his disease masters, that is. So the people that had taught him during his life. There's no explanation for that for us. And then the last thing I wanted to say more things, but I'm going to leave you with this. At some point, and I've explained this before in my previous presentation, I also got an invitation to the middle of the Amazon by a curandero master, and again, when I was 2 meters away from him, I got into this different atmosphere. It was completely aware of what was going on, and there was this woman, she had just appeared there. He came from Europe, and I saw there was 2 other bodies next to her. There was no explanation for that, but the first thing is that there was an objective vision. I don't like vision, but there was an objective reality, because both the curandero and myself were seeing these 3 bodies next to this woman, which were the past memories of this woman. I'm not talking about past lives, I won't dwell into that, but past memories of her luggage. And this is why from that point, and that was 30 years ago, I said, well, we have to investigate based on memory, and the theories of chaos were great for that. But besides the objective vision and the memory, I thought and I saw there was an impressive reality there. A reality we need to face so that no accidents happen that can go against this impressive knowledge and authority. So these 3 lines of work, traditional medicine, Zen Buddhism, and professional clinical psychology, we are developing these, and there's books and papers on this. And we want to set up this center in Spain or out of Spain in order to get the permits and not having to go to the Amazon to work on this. But if not, we will go to the Amazon. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.